Well, the Young Turks, I have disastrous news for you today. And buckets full of it, almost on every issue. Healthcare is in tatters. The reform is in disastrous shape. And if you think that's bad, the reaction to it from the White House is even worse. Well, that's fun for everybody. I'm going to start with that in a second, okay? Afghanistan's not going well. Climate talks got suspended today in Copenhagen for a while. Disaster on top of disaster. And then Obama's come out and chided the bankers. Oh, they have been chided. I'm sure they'll turn it around. And so that's a comical effort. So we'll get to all of that. But before any of that, I got to start with good news. What am I talking about? Young Turks, best political podcast in the world! Come on. Okay. It's not a big deal. We beat Rush Limbaugh. Bill Maher, good guys. What can you do? Left, right, and center. Arianna Huffington's on that program, many others. Conservative shows, libertarian shows, other liberal shows. We beat them all. Young Turks, best political podcast of 2009. Best in the country, best in the world. It's not a big deal. I'm just telling you what it is. That's how we roll. And once again, you hear the cries of, but no, your army is too large. And it is too, TYT Nation is too strong. Well, you can't, it's not fair. What happened? I thought Rush Limbaugh had whatever made up number that they go with, like 20 million listeners, he says. Then they moved it down to 14 million. And some say maybe 8 million. You get a sense of how bogus radio ratings are? They're like, I don't know, 20, 14, 8, I don't know. They're just making it up, right? Whereas our viewers online are 100% verifiable. We have 170 million views on YouTube. Now that's overall, per month, it's just like 12, 13 million. What can we do? Okay, anyway, but the proof is in the pudding. And that's what I'm about to tell you guys today. Look, it's not us, it's you guys. And politicians say nonsense like that, right? But in this case, it's absolutely true. You're the one who did the voting. So then you showed, well, okay, apparently more people like us than they do Rush Limbaugh and some of the others. And that's why we won the award. And that's why we're going to win Best Political News Site on Mashable as well. That comes out later in the week. I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling you what the reality is. I mean, look, our friend Best of the Left podcast, where he puts together all different, obviously left-wing podcasts, Jay Tomlinson, he went in the Best Produced category. We helped the brother out, and he was strong enough as it was. Anyway, boom, he won Best Produced. Our army is too large. It is too strong. What can we do? What can we do? So congratulations, you guys. An awesome victory, and obviously we'll use that to, back the show and tell people, obviously, how big it is and strong it is and get more people to pay attention. So we couldn't appreciate it more. All right, now, one other thing that's happening, which is good news for this month, is we're doing a membership drive in December, which this is the first time we've ever done it, right? Why? Because we want to take some of the great TYT web soldiers and we want to bring them in-house, okay? As much as we can't do wholesale, but a little bit at a time. We want to expand, we want to get bigger, we want to do more shows. So the way to do that is to have more members on the Young Turks so we can hire some new people, okay? So what are we going to do to drive up membership? First time ever. If you sign up for basic membership, you're going to get really cool stuff, including, if you want, a TYT hoodie. You can get it in black with the TYT logo on it. It's really badass. Makes me want to sign up. And then we have different levels, lieutenant, captain, colonel, lieutenant, general, et cetera. We got duffel bags with TYT logo. We got iPods we're giving away, including kick-ass iPods, depending on the level you go to, like 160 GB iPod Classic for lieutenant general, and plus the hoodie, plus sometimes the transmitters, so you can hook up the Young Turks through your iPod or your iPhone or your MP3 or MP4 to your car and listen in your car, so you don't have to listen to that conservative crap on the radio in 9 out of 10 places. So if you're ever going to sign up for membership, December is definitely the time to do it. It's the only time we're probably going to do it. So we'd love to have you guys. All right, so that's the good news, and I'm excited about all that. Now, let's get to, unfortunately, the real news, which is not so good. So the disaster began when Joe Lieberman came out and said, yeah, this whole Medicare buy-in, well, funny enough, I'm not buying it. Okay, I'm not in favor of it, and they're going to have to take that out in order to get my vote. He said it on Face the Nation. Then he went and had a private meeting with Harry Reid and said, look, not only will I vote against it, but I will join a Republican filibuster and make sure we kill it. Okay? So what happened to the compromise? And exactly as some of the skeptics predicted, most notably Jane Hampshire, who's been fighting very, very hard about this at Fire Dog Lake, she came on the show and said, they're not going to do it. You think they're going to do it? They're not going to do it. And she's right? So they come out and they're like, well, okay, all of that compromising was still not enough for Joe Lieberman, and because of Lieberman, that gives cover to Nelson and Landrieu and Lincoln, and they're not on board either. And so now you kill the part that we compromised about. So in the end, there's no public option, there's no Medicare buy-in, there's no single payer, there's nothing. I mean, this bill, if they agree to it, if Harry Reid agrees to it, is a joke. Okay. And of course, Joe Lieberman says, oh, no, we're covering new people. Yeah. And the people who are going to cover it is private insurance, the people that give you money. Right, Joe? So he loves that part. That's more money for private insurance. Okay, so now that news in and of itself was disastrous. But it got much worse when we found out later in the day, White House to Reid, this is the headline from Politico, cut deal with Lieberman. Meaning, just give in to Lieberman. Give him whatever he wants. Bold leadership. Bold. It's very, very bold of you. If this is true, and of course it's, references Rahm Emanuel as a guy saying cave in at the first opportunity, cave in at all opportunities. If it's true, and they say, oh no, there's no public option, and we were kidding about Medicare buy-in, there's no Medicare buy-in either, and there's just not a damn thing for progressives, and honestly not a damn thing for cost containment, so your premiums will continue to rise, and private insurance will continue to make gargantuan profits off your back. In fact, the government will subsidize a lot of those profits because we're covering new people, and you and I will have to pay for that. But don't worry, private insurance gets richer. Well, then you know what I say? I say, hell no. Hell no. No way, man. Now, before, if with the Medicare buy-in, there was a question of, well, you know what? There's no public option, but at least you cover people 55 to 65, and they could buy in, pay a premium, and get Medicare, and that has lower costs, so maybe. But now you take that away, where's the compromise from them? Nothing, nada, squat, dickola. I'm not buying into that. Hell no. If you're a true progressive, you vote no on this. Okay, they want to play tough guy. They want to say, hey, we can kill the bill, we can kill the bill. You know who else can kill the bill? We can kill the bill. Okay? We vote no. And so let's see how they respond. Let's see how the Feingold's and the Sanders and the true progressives and the Sherrod Browns, et cetera, respond in the Senate. But this is a pathway to disaster. I mean, for the first time, I've always thought they were going to make a deal. That they were going to do some BS compromise. We were going to get hosed in the meanwhile, but they were going to get a deal. For the first time today, I thought, you know what? They might not even get a deal. Because this is horse crap. To come in here and say, no, there's no cost containment, progressives get nothing, and this bill is written by Joe Lieberman, the biggest suck-up to the private health insurance industry in the country. And a guy who's not even remotely Democratic at this point. Here's another conclusion. Lieberman is a lost cause. Just call him a Republican and move on. That's it. The Democrats only have 59 votes. They don't have 60. It sucks. They only have 59. But you have to deal with that reality and move on. Joe Lieberman is never, ever going to give you a vote that you want. Okay? Especially if you think it's important. Well, out of spite. I mean, Ezra Klein at the Washington Post, Jonathan Alter in Newsweek, everybody's saying, look, he just hates liberals. One of his main motivations here is he wants to screw liberals. It doesn't matter how it affects the country, et cetera. And yes, he gets a lot of money from private insurance, so that's another large motivation. But he's never going to give you that vote. So call him an official Republican and move on. Okay? So you got 59 votes. You either go get snow somehow, or you know what? You do what we've been telling you all along. You say, all right, we're going to split up the bill. It sucks. It's messy. It's going to take longer. We understand the pitfalls of it, but we don't have a choice. So we're going to do reconciliation, which means you take things like the public option. All you need is a 50 votes on it. You can, today, go have the vote today, you'll have 56 votes. It's guaranteed. They're already locked in at 56 votes. You're going to pass it super easy, no problem, flying colors. And then you say, well, you can't do everything through reconciliation because that has to do with the budget. Now, the public option has to do with the budget. The other half of it is not controversial anyway. The other half of it is covering more people. Private insurance wants that. You know, all the Democrats claim they want that. Joe Lieberman says he wants that. All right. So that part gets passed with 60 votes, and this part gets passed with 50 votes. Now, if you had a strong leader in the White House, that's what he would do. Instead, they go, what could we do? In this article, they're like, oh, well, the sources inside the White House are like, well, you know, I guess we don't have a choice, so we have to bow our head to Lieberman. Look, there's no other word for it. That's pathetic. If that's your idea of leadership, pathetic, ridiculous, absurd, totally unacceptable. Okay, now, let's go to the clips to give you a better sense of exactly where we're coming from here. First, in clip number 5, Joe Lieberman is going to make a stand. He's on Face the Nation. Bob Sheever's also going to talk to Senator Nelson in this clip. He's another one of the conservative Democrats that's holding out. You get a sense of where Joe stands on this. Let's watch.
Bob, as I was saying, there's a good basic bill in here, and the parts of it can be supported by 60 senators, including some Republicans. But we've got to stop adding to the bill. We've got to start subtracting some controversial things. I think the only way to get this done before Christmas is to bring in some Republicans who are open-minded on this, like Olympia Snowe. I'll tell you...
Well, what do you have to do that?
You got to take out the Medicare buy-in. You got to forget about the public option. You probably have to take out the Class Act, which is a whole new entitlement program that will, in future years, put us further in the deficit. And you got to adopt some of the cost containment provisions that'll strengthen cost containment that all of us favor.
Liar.
If you did that, you'd have an enormous accomplishment. 30 million Americans who can't afford insurance today would get it. Insurance companies would be more aggressively regulated and costs would be bent down. So it's time to get reasonable.
Well, what about that, Senator?
Well, I think every piece of landmark legislation has had bipartisan support. In many cases, 2/3 or more of the Senate voting for that legislation. That's one of the things that is missing right now. It's not easy to reach across the aisle under the circumstances we find ourselves, highly politicized, very partisan.
Why do you think it's a bad idea to add this buy-in to Medicare, to let younger people buy into this program, Senator Nelson?
Well, first of all, we don't know what the numbers are yet, Bob, and so that's a
you don't know what it's going to cost.
We don't know what it's going to cost. The second thing is I'm concerned that it's the forerunner of single payer, the ultimate single payer plan, maybe even more directly than the public option.
Bob, is that...
All right, yeah, I got you, helmet head. Okay, he wants 2/3. So we got to go get... 60 is not enough for Ben Nelson. Remember, these guys are all Democrats. Democrats, theoretically. He's saying, no, you got to go get more Republicans to sign on. Well, what's the cost of Republicans signing on? Lieberman did your laundry list. Take out every piece of reform in the bill. Take out Medicare buy-in, take out a public option, even take out the Class Act. And when you take all that stuff, he's going to have a list of 3 other things to take out. Because all he wants to do is, and this is super ironic, because then he talked about cost containment, and he's a goddamn liar. He doesn't want cost containment at all, okay? The only thing he wants to do is add 30 million Americans paid for by the United States government, subsidized by taxpayers, onto private insurance dole, okay, onto their payroll, okay? So he wants to take those guys and say, you have to buy private insurance, and the American taxpayer will subsidize it. So in the end, there is no cost containment, the premiums skyrocket, and his buddies get rich off of it. I am doing everything I can with every fiber of my body not to call him a sea sucker, okay? Every time he speaks, no, you've got to be done with him, man. Done with him. There's no negotiation with Joe. Imagine if I was leading the Senate. I'd be like, look, Joe, here's the situation. Oh, you want me to take out Medicare buy, and you want me to take all that out. And at the end of that, you give me another list, right? Okay, you're done here. You're done, okay? So you move over to the Republican side. No, shut the fuck up and move on, okay? Move on. Go to the Republican side. I never want to see you again. I don't ever want your vote again. I will go to every Republican. I go to John Cornyn. I'll go to Orrin Hatch. I'll go to whoever I need to go to and not ever come to you. Your chairmanship. Chairmanship? You're talking about under Democratic rule, you're going to have a chairmanship? Get the fuck out of here. Okay? Joe Lieberman. No, you're done, son. You don't get to have a voice in anything anymore. Okay, you don't get to raise any money with Obama. You don't get to raise any money with Democrats. You don't get to call yourself a Democrat. I don't care what you call yourself. The Democratic Party is going to have a press conference where we are going to announce that you are the worst of all Republicans. Okay, that you are public enemy number one, and that we will spend every nickel we have to defeat you in your next election, because you are the worst politician in the country. Now, that's what I would do if I was Senate leader or if I was the president. And then they tell me, no, the president can't do anything. Why? Is he impotent? Does he not have a nutsack? Why can't the president do anything? Can you imagine if they walk into Lyndon Johnson while he's trying to do Medicare and Medicaid, and they say, oh, no, Mr. President, you can't do anything. You have to just bow your head to any senator that comes by and says, I'm going to stop this bill. What do you think Lyndon Johnson would have done with you? You think he would have, like Obama, he'd have been like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, I'm sorry. Of course, there's nothing I can do. The problem isn't that Obama's a coward. Let's keep it real, okay? The problem isn't that he doesn't think he can do anything. He's the goddamn president. Of course he can do something. The problem is he doesn't want to do anything with Wall Street reform and with healthcare reform. He has made deals with these companies, and he has no intention of breaking those deals. He has an intention of delivering for them in a massive way so that they fill up the coffers of him and his party so he can get reelected in 2012, and they can keep getting reelected, they think, as best as they can in 2010 and 2012. If this continues, we don't really have a progressive party in the country. Now, we have progressives within the Democratic Party, but Barack Obama ain't one of them. All right, now, look, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'll come back to Rockefeller. Let's go to Robert Gibbs, clip number 7. Okay, so the White House spokesman, how does he respond to these rumors, not rumors, to these reports from leaks from inside the White House that they're bowing their head to Lieberman and that they're going to say, they're asking Harry Reid to cave in. By the way, in these reports, Harry Reid's the strong one. Harry Reid's like, look, I don't know if we should cave in to Lieberman yet. That's as strong as it gets on the Democratic side. And Obama's like, please, please, please cave in. Please give him everything he wants. All right, let's see what kind of nonsense response Gibbs has here. I'm sure he's going to come out strong. Say absolutely not, right? Let's watch.
Robert, has the president picked up the phone and called Joe Lieberman about health care reform?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, of course not.
Would he consider that? Is the report true that is published on Politico that the White House is encouraging Senator Reid to sit down and make a deal with Lieberman and give up on the Medicare expansion?
I can only say this, Anna. The president is anxious to see progress, and will continue to work with Democrats and Republicans, and independents, and everyone in between, to make that progress, to take those steps.
Is this a serious problem with Senator Lieberman? Would the president get involved?
Well, the president's been involved. We wouldn't be sitting here the 14th of December, when you'd much rather be Christmas shopping, discussing the Senate being in on the weekends if the president wasn't involved. The president's been involved the whole time.
I mean, look, if you follow politics at all, that was crystal clear. Okay, he said, are we talking to Lieberman? No, why should we talk to Lieberman? Why? Pressuring Lieberman. You don't want to pressure Lieberman. You want to give in to Lieberman. Okay, and then, is it true about the deal? He's like, well, we're working with everybody. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, we're working with everybody. That means, yeah, we're looking to make a deal. And the deal is there's no real health care reform. We trick the American people and call it health care reform. That's the deal. And then he says, has the president been involved? Well, it's not in fighting for the public option, not for fighting for Medicare buy-in, but yes, every once in a while the president gets involved in saying to Harry Reid or to other progressives, Harry Reid looks like a lion again here among the progressives so far, right? He turns around and says to them, no, give it to the Republicans. Give it to Lieberman. Give it to them. No, you don't get it. No, this is not the change we voted for. This is total and utter bullshit. That's what it is, okay? To say it's disappointing is a gargantuan understatement. All right, I'm going to give you one more clip here to give you a sense of how the Democrats... Now, Rockefeller's been fighting for the right side here, right? But look at how deluded he is. And these guys are never going to get tough. Okay, watch this. Clip number 6.
Do either of you think this can pass with the buy-in to Medicare in it, and or a public option if it goes back?
No, they're not 60 votes for that, because the bill itself does a lot to bring 30 million people into the system. We don't need to keep adding onto the back of this horse, because we're going to break the horse's back and get nothing done. I want to tell you, we could pass a health care reform bill this week with more than 60 votes, and it will be bipartisan if we just took a few things out of the bill as it is today.
Senator Rockefeller, it's hard for me to think that your optimism is going to prevail here when you hear the statements that these two senators have made.
And they're both very good friends. We're both working on major parts of the bill together. And it's not hard for me to feel optimistic. I do.
We're out
because
of time.
history calls on us.
Yeah, you keep waiting for that history. See how it comes around, okay? Here's what I would have said on Face the Nation. Okay, these two over here, these two jokers, these two clowns, they're done. We're not cutting any deals with them. We're going through reconciliation. So, Bob, you wasted your time with them here because they're now completely irrelevant. I have 56 votes. Hey, what are you going to do, helmet head? What are you going to do, Lieberman? Okay? Oh, you're going to cry now, right? Oh, it's not bipartisan. It didn't get 2/3. You didn't take enough out. Here, here's what I got for you. Here, okay? Okay, hey, Bob, am I clear enough? We got 56 goddamn senators. Were the American people unclear, okay? We got their votes, and we're passing this, okay? You can either sit on the sideline with your thumb up your ass, or you come join. Otherwise, piss off and go be a Republican. It would be an interesting world if I was in charge. Young Turks. Welcome to Young Turks. Best Political Podcast Award winner of 2009. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. All right, JR is producing, Jesus is directing. Now, a little bit later in this hour, we're going to talk to Congressman Rob Andrews, and I'm going to ask him how it feels to be taken for a chump by President Obama, because if people in the House think they're getting a public option, the president has a different message for them. He says he doesn't give a damn about them. He wants to make sure his buddy Lieberman is paid off. I mean, is happy with the Senate version of the bill, which will have absolutely no cost containment, none. Now, we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk to Congressman Andrews, among other topics. But let's go from healthcare to the banks. Well, look, good news there. President Obama is going to get tough on the banks. I know because he told me so. He went on 60 Minutes and he said, I did not run for office to be helping out a bunch of fat cat bankers. Ooh, that's tough talk. What's really frustrating me right now is that you've got these same banks who benefited from taxpayer assistance, we are fighting tooth and nail against, who are now fighting tooth and nail against financial regulatory control. Okay, very right. And then he did his little speech that he does on YouTube and on radio, etc., over the weekend, talking about how this is an era of irresponsibility by the bankers and that they need to correct themselves. They've gambled on risky loans and complex financial products in pursuit of short-term profits and big bonuses with little regard to long-term consequences. That is exactly right. So all those parts are exactly right of President Obama. And you say, okay, he's on top of this thing. He's got it on lockdown. And in fact, he's calling in the bankers today. And he called in all of the top bankers in the country, the CEOs, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, JP Morgan, et cetera, and he said, you've been very, very bad boys. You've been really naughty. Are you going to change now? And the bankers snickered. Now, you ready for the behind-the-scenes stuff? Okay, first of all, banking executives said this is, quote, a PR stunt, and we're supposed to come in for a public spanking, and then that's it. And they say, oh, yeah, we'll make some, PR moves about how, oh, we're helping the little guy, and we sure get some investment out there, give some loans for small businesses. No, they're not going to do any of that stuff. And in fact, when you go to see what the Obama administration has decided that they're actually going to do with the bankers, here's two relevant paragraphs out of Politico. Now, Politico sometimes is a little right-leaning and they drive me crazy. So I'm perfectly aware of that. But I have not seen their sources be wrong 9 out of 10 times. When they do analysis, it's sometimes comical, right? But the White House does feed them information, okay? And if they're wrong, I'm going to be the first one to point it out to you. But listen to what they're reporting. I think they're right on this. Obama will take a measured tone with the bankers, telling them he wants to have a candid and constructive conversation and doesn't want to vilify anyone, according to administration officials. But the president will tell the banks that they have a special responsibility to help spur recovery because of the extraordinary bailout assistance they received last year. The president will acknowledge the industry concerned that regulators are overcorrecting and have become overzealous, and he'll call for a dialogue about that issue. So, what do we get there? He says, you have to acknowledge your responsibility. Wow. Johnny, now that's 3 cookies you ate out of the cookie jar. Acknowledge your responsibility. Okay, great. You have? Now go ahead and have at it again with the cookie jar. Take all the cookies you like. I'm not going to set any rules. Hey, listen, why do you continue to ask them for favors? And the Politico article and every article on this, Time Magazine, Associated Press, they say, well, the administration does not have much leverage. Come again? Why doesn't it have leverage? Here we go. Let's have fun. If I was the president, I'd call the same guys in and I wouldn't beg them. I wouldn't plead with them. In fact, I wouldn't have any kind of conversation where I'm asking them to do something. I'd sit them down and I said, look, here's the fun, the upside for you guys is that I'm not going to ask you to do anything. Here's the downside for you guys. I'm going to tell you what to do, okay? Now, I'm not going to tell you what kind of things that you should invest in, what kind of loans you should give, etc. I'm not interested in that. I'm a capitalist, okay? But here's what happened. I rescued your ass. And when I say I mean I as a representative of the United States taxpayers. So, in essence, we're your boss now. So here's your boss telling you something, okay? If you don't do everything I tell you in terms of opening up credit, etc., and you could argue whether that's the right policy. We'll get to that a little later, okay? Here's what I'm going to do. You know those credit default swaps you make all your money from? And the only thing you care about and the reason that you're taking all this money and not giving it out and not lending it out because you don't give a damn about actually doing loans anymore, you just want to build up capital so you could have more leverage to buy more derivatives and to trade more derivatives? Well, here's what's the fun thing that I'm going to do. I agree with Paul Volcker, former head of the Fed. I agree with George Soros, who is one of the smartest institutional investors in the world and has made billions doing this. I agree with all the top economists in the country that have been warning me about this. I agree with Warren Buffett, who calls derivatives financial weapons of mass destruction. So credit default swaps, they're done. I'm going to ban them. And then here's what would happen in the room. Absolute and utter panic. Okay? They'd be like, no. And I say, oh, no, you need Congress, and we bought Congress. You can't do it without Congress. Oh, really? I'm going to do an executive decision. I've decided as part of my regulatory power that through whatever agency I like, the SEC, the FTC, make up 3 letters, 4 letters, take any letters you like. Okay, that agency is going to decide that this is fraudulent, useless, etc., and you don't have credit default swaps anymore. That market is done, okay? Then they say, please, what can we do for you? Please. Oh, now we're having a conversation. What can you do for me? All right, now let's talk. You don't have any leverage. Obama has all the leverage in the world that he wants. He just doesn't want to use it because this is all, as the industry executive said right from the beginning, a PR stunt. This is so that Obama can go, bad boys in public, and then turn it around to the American public and say, you see how I'm yelling at them? Oh, aren't I tough? Oh, no, I didn't represent these fat cat bankers. And then he turns around to the bankers and says, yeah, that's BS. Okay, come on. What do you need? What do you want from me? Okay, sure, yeah. Regulatory reform, I'll pretend I'm in favor of it and then gut it. How do I know? It's already happening in the House. And the guys who pushed for every loophole was the Obama administration. As I was walking in here today, I saw that, we had one of those posters we got from the campaign. And it's an Obama poster, and it says hope underneath. We got it from the campaign, so it's a campaign memento, et cetera, et cetera. I think I'm going to ask Anna to take it down. Okay? She's the one who grabbed it. She carried it all the way from Colorado, and I really appreciate it, et cetera. Hope my ass. Okay? This guy does exactly what the bankers tell him to do. The House bill that just got passed on financial reform has loopholes you can drive a truck through. We're going to just make derivatives transparent. We're not going to regulate them. We just want to see what the derivatives you're doing, except you can do foreign currency swaps. So, and that's what Geithner pushed for, okay? So that means, if you do it abroad, I'm simplifying here, but basically that's a $50 trillion loophole then you don't have to report it at all. And for the end users, well, we can't do that. So no, they get a loophole for the end users too. You know what? You just eliminated 90% of derivatives. So that means, what I mean by eliminated is, as part of the bill, that's 90% is the loophole. So we get to see what they're doing with 10% of their derivatives. We don't get to regulate it, we just get to see it. Who pushed for that? Tim Geithner at the Treasury Department, Barack Obama did. They have no intention of regulating these guys in an effective manner. On the Senate side, Chris Dodd actually came up with a tough bill. We were shocked. I saw it, I was like, whoa, what is that? That looks pretty good, right? Of course, instantly watered down. Who are the guys who were pushing to water it down? Tim Geithner, Larry Summers, Barack Obama. There ain't no hope. There ain't no change. I can hear you guys saying it. Of course. Who's going to win at that? The rich guys, the corporations, okay? The corporate overlords. They own the Democrats. They own the Republicans. Now, the reason I like the Democrats a little better than the Republicans is that every single one of the Republicans is sold out. Every one of them. They just had a meeting with 100 of the bankers' top lobbyists last week, and they asked the lobbyists to fight harder to kill financial reform. The Republicans asked them. Because, look, they're begging for their money. They're like, oh, give me your money, give me your money. Okay, now the Democrats, there's a couple of guys who actually fight for the right things and actually want reform. They don't want the system to explode again. I can count them on my hands, probably. But in the end, Obama administration waters it down, and then they come and they do a joke of a PR stunt here where they pretend to scold the bankers, and then they go about creating giant loopholes for them to go through. So, hey, President Obama, not interested at all. He's shaping up to be an enormously and profound disappointment. I'm doing it for you guys, la 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 la, spare me, okay? So, you know what? Let's do one clip from Larry Summers to get a sense of it. He was on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, and it's clip number 8. He's theoretically scolding the bankers, but let's hear what he actually says. Let's watch.
Okay, let me ask you just a final question. President Obama is calling in the heads of some of the country's biggest banks tomorrow to try to get them to lend more to small businesses and consumers. And that seems to be a big failing so far. You point out that the administration has stabilized. Some of the programs have stabilized the financial industry, but we see the banks making money, paying back the TARP funds, but not really increasing lending. What more can President Obama do to encourage that, or is the bully pulpit really his only option?
Yeah.
Look, he's going to have a serious talk.
Wow.
With the bankers. The country did incredible things for the banking industry. Those things had to be done to save the economy, but no major bank would be intact, in a position to pay bonuses if that extraordinary support had not been provided. The bankers need to recognize that. They need to recognize that they've got obligations to the country after all that's been done for them. And there's a lot more they can do. And President Obama is going to be talking with them about what they can do to support enhanced lending to customers across the country. We were there for them, and the banks need to do everything they can to be sure they're there for customers across this country.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Summers.
All right, well, the part I liked about that is that at least Larry Summers was honest for a second there when he said, well, we were there for them. Oh boy, Larry, were you. You really delivered for them. And now they say, what can we do? All we can do is a serious talk because we have no leverage. I wonder if while you were giving them the money, before you gave them the money, you had said, hey, you take these regulations or we don't give you the money and you go under. If that might have helped, if you had a little bit more leverage back then, of course. And this is not Monday morning quarterback. That's exactly what we said as it was happening. And the Democrats said to us, oh, no. And the Republicans, absolutely, every one of them said, no, we can't. We can't do any regulation right now. But trust us, after the banks get back on their feet, they will voluntarily, go along with these reforms. And now we're down to having serious talks with them. And look at even the framing of the question from the media. Is all Obama has is the bully pulpit? No, he has 2x4 if he's interested in using it, but he's not. Young Turks.
Dare, I'll make a bet with you. Now, you played pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the
All
devil
right.
his due.
Young
I bet a fiddle
Turks.
of gold against
Are
your
you referring to a bet I offered earlier, JR? Is that what this is about? All right. Now, before I move on to Afghanistan, that's a little bit more of a nuanced issue, complicated issue as to which direction President Obama is going to his Nobel Prize speech, etc. Let me add one little final exclamation point to healthcare, which is a fun little fact. Our guest referred to it earlier in the program, not Congressman Andrews, but the other guest that we had on from the Faster Times. It's not just Joe Lieberman's position that the Medicare buy-in is the way to go since the 2000 election. A new story out now with video. We don't have it yet. We'll have it for you tomorrow. But with video that shows that not only was Joe Lieberman in favor of the Medicare buy-in, which he now says is unacceptable, but he's on video saying how he's pushing for it 3 months ago. 3 months ago. So he's the one pushing for it. So then they give it to him, and he says, ha ha ha, I was just kidding. Ha ha. So Paul Begala is quoted in an article saying, well, if someone then turns around and is against their own provision, you begin to wonder if they're dealing in good faith. Oh, do you begin to wonder that? Oh, I see. Okay. Yes. I began to wonder that a long, long time ago. And is Joe Lieberman dealing in good faith? Of course not. Of course not. He wants to kill this thing no matter what, and if you gave him that, he'll want more. And if you continue to have negotiations with Joe Lieberman, you're a fool. Call him a Republican and move on. Find someone else to make a deal with or go to reconciliation. Now, Podesta apparently saying that the Democrats are finally beginning to think about it. You don't say. Wow, okay. God, they're so frustrating. All right, so let's go to Afghanistan. Now, a lot of debate over President Obama's speech over when he won the Nobel Prize and went to accept it. I went back and reread the speech because conservatives loved it, right? Not all of them. Some of them did not like it, but a lot of them were in favor of it. And I was like, okay. And some liberals liked it as well. So, and Glenn Greenwald wrote an interesting article about, wait a minute, because the neocons and the liberals liked the same speech. And part of his answer is, of course, right, which was, well, Obama's great at this. When he gives a speech, everybody walks out of the room thinking, oh, yeah, he's on my side. Oh, no, he's on my side. What are you talking about? He's excellent at reaching out to everybody and thinking that he's on their side, okay? And you read the speech, and it does. If you like war, it's got something in there for you. If you like peace, it's got something in there for you. But who's ultimately right? Well, and was it a good speech or was it a bad speech? Well, let me explain. First, did this Obama speech push for basically justifying and explaining war at times? Absolutely, it did, okay? Is it a curious choice to make while accepting a peace prize? A little, yes. But it actually also makes sense because he's saying, look, there's a time for peace, there's a time for war, and what we have to do as a world community is figure out which time is which. I mean, no one really believes that you could never have any war, right? So the question is, under what circumstances do you go to war? And he laid out, in my opinion, a very moderate case to be made. I mean, I think I'm moderate in foreign policy. So in the end, when I looked at that speech, I liked it a lot, to be honest with you. I really liked it. And it's because it said, look, his job as commander-in-chief is not to be Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King, but at the same time, starting unilateral wars, preemptive strikes, etc., is not the way to go. And if you read the speech, even though he did not mention Iraq, it was loud and clear that it was a denunciation of what we did in Iraq. That we should not have gone in without the world community, we should not have gone in without the evidence that we obviously did not have, we should not have acted unilaterally or done a preemptive strike. Now, if he would have made that clearer, I would have been happier with the speech. But he's playing a little bit of politics there by not making it even clearer than he did, okay? On the other hand, does the United States of America have to go to war from time to time? Of course we do. So, and then he explains the reasons why we might. Self-defense, humanitarian reasons, but not just generally and vaguely, but specifically what kind of humanitarian purposes and how we need to bring the whole world community into it. Conservatives liked it because he bragged about America. I mean, I love America too. Yeah, of course. I liked it. He said, we've been the protector of the peace in a lot of ways. Now, what some liberals will point out is, yeah, we've been protective of the peace, except for times that we haven't, like Iraq and Vietnam and many other instances. So now, but was it Obama's job there to talk about all the hypocrisies of the American government while receiving that award? I don't necessarily think so, as long as he laid out a good case for his policies, what now they're calling the Obama Doctrine. If the Obama Doctrine is let's act in moderation and go to war when we have to, and not go to war when we don't have to, well, then I'm in, okay? Now, I guess if you're a pacifist, you say no, you don't go and accept the Nobel Peace Prize and then give a speech justifying war. And there's good, smart liberals on that side. Glenn Greenwald is one of them. He says in the end, he says, you know, it could be a justification for some of the bad wars that we've been in, right? So you would be against it. And then on the other hand, on the right-wing side, if you are in favor of any damn war you please, and Iraq, and hey, you know, that guy sneezed the wrong way, we're going into his country, well, then you'd be against this speech too. But I think if you're like most of us, it was right down the middle, okay? And in a positive way, not in a bad way. Now, let's give you both sides, okay? Now, Kucinich is going to make the liberal case against the speech. He's going to be passionate about it. He's going to make a good case. Ultimately, I disagree with him, but I'm glad he said this. Let's go to clip number 1.
Yesterday, our president mused about the inevitability of war, war's instrumentality in pursuit of peace, and just wars. It is important for us to reflect on his words, because once we believe in the inevitability of war, war becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once we're committed to war's instrumentality in pursuit of peace, we begin the Orwellian journey to the semantic netherworld where war is peace, where the momentum of war overwhelms hopes for peace. And once we wrap doctrines perpetuating war in the arms of justice, we can easily legitimate the wholesale slaughter of innocents. The war against Iraq was based on lies, wars in Afghanistan and Pakistan based on flawed doctrines of counterinsurgency. War is often not just. Sometimes it's just war. And our ability to rethink the terms of our existence, to explore the possibility of peace without war, may well determine whether we end war or war ends us.
I think it's a great speech by Kucinich. I'm glad he's there to make it. Ultimately, I don't agree with him. I think that there are such things as just wars. I think the counterinsurgency in Pakistan, as it's being fought, is not perfect but not bad. That has to be fought. Al-Qaeda is in northern Pakistan. Now, I'm not against all wars. On the other hand, I'm glad that Kucinich is there to remind us, hey, don't just jump into it willy-nilly, right? And that this thing justifies itself. Those are very good warnings. So we have to be extraordinarily careful. Now, Obama mentioned that we have to be careful in his speech, and that's what John Bolton on the right-wing side did not like. He thinks we shouldn't be that careful. Let's go to clip number 3 for that.
I face the world as it is and cannot stand idle in the face of threats to the American people. For make no mistake, evil does exist in the world. A nonviolent movement could not have halted Hitler's armies. Negotiations cannot convince Al-Qaeda's leaders to lay down their arms.
For that, he's getting some praise in conservative quarters.
This was a complex, intellectually rich, impressive speech.
I thought the speech was actually very good. In some ways, it's a very historic speech.
He made the case for a just war.
He did.
And it was pretty stunning.
I liked what he said. In fact, I thumbed through my book quickly this morning to say, wow, that really sounded familiar.
Well,
no,
I thought it was the best speech he's ever given on the foreign soil.
But with us now is a man who was not so impressed. John Bolton is the former ambassador to the United Nations. And, John, I mean, you're always the ant at the picnic. I mean, you got Gerson, Gingrich, Scarborough, Palin, all said, you know, look, he praised America. He said war was sometimes necessary. What's your beef with the speech?
Look, I thought it was shallow and sophomoric. He didn't say anything new in this speech he hadn't said in the West Point speech on Afghanistan or his 2 speeches at the UN. Like most politicians, and that's an important point, he is like most politicians, he put a lot of chum in the water for a lot of different people. It's true, he said, sometimes war is necessary. Nobody's ever accused him of being a pacifist. Jimmy Carter wasn't a pacifist. Woodrow Wilson wasn't a pacifist. Neville Chamberlain wasn't a pacifist. Their mistake was fundamentally misunderstanding what to do about threats to their respective countries. And that's where Obama gets it wrong. And this speech is filled with fundamental errors that I think pose grave dangers for the U.S.
One thing that he said during the speech is, America cannot act alone.
You took the quote I had underlined right here.
Mind meld here.
Let me just say,
that jumped out at me when he said that.
He didn't say it's imprudent for America to act alone, or America should have allies, or we're better off. He said we cannot act. That's fundamentally wrong. But it reflects, I think, what's basically his mindset, which is he is post-American. He's against nuclear proliferation. He's against belligerent war. He just wants to resolve it through the framework of the United Nations. And that's what the real problem is. That's why North Korea and Iran continue to pursue their nuclear programs. That's why we have the risk of continuing global terrorism, because the Obama approach isn't going to work. And because he says a nice thing about America every once in a while doesn't change the fundamental philosophy at work in his brain.
All right, let's handle John Bolton first before we go to the others. He says he's outraged, he's sophomoric, that America cannot act alone. First of all, totally taken out of context. Several times in the speech, Obama said, of course, every country, including America, has the right to act unilaterally to defend itself. So within context, he's saying, yeah, if you attack me, of course I'm going to attack you back right away, right? When he's saying that America cannot act alone is when we are going to go into Bosnia or Rwanda. And then you can say, hey, Clinton went into Bosnia, etc. But he's making an intelligent case for when you go in, okay? Whether it's Rwanda or Iraq. And saying you can't act alone, you need the world community with you. And of course, John Bolton, he hates the world community. He doesn't want the world community. He thinks, I'm America, I act alone. Well, in the end, you're going to be left alone, okay? John Bolton is the epitome of the neocon moron, okay? It doesn't get any dumber, it doesn't get any more wrong than John Bolton, where he just sits there and thinks America should attack willy-nilly across the world any way that it likes and not pay any attention to our neighbors, our allies, or anyone else in the world. Now, that's exactly what we fought against for 8 years. That's why when I see Obama's speech, I go right down the middle. He's right. Now, I don't want him to split the difference between Kucinich and Bolton. That's not the right answer. The right answer is a thoughtful policy, which is what I think he has. Now, Morning Joe over there, Joe Scarborough, was like, he says he defended a just war. That was stunning. Why is that stunning? That's not stunning. You know one of the just wars that he defended in his speech? World War II. Stunning that a Democrat would defend World War II. There's nothing stunning about that. It's the most obvious thing in the world. And then Sarah Palin, it kind of sounds familiar, like in my book. Oh, please, Sarah. Oh, please. I mean, you read Obama's that speech, and agree or disagree, it is goddamn brilliant, okay? I mean, you look at it and you go, oh, intelligence is oozing from every corner of that speech. And then I was listening to old Bush clips over the weekend. And you're like, oh my God. I mean, that's why Obama still holds on to a 55% popularity rating. Because we still are like terrorized by the idea of this moron like Bush who was running the country, who couldn't put one sentence next to another. Sarah Palin, you're going to compare your foreign policy to Obama's? Please. But on the substance of it, it's not true at all. Sarah Palin, of course, defends the most right-wing lunatic foreign policy of preemptive strikes, hit anybody at any time, just because if we feel like it, which is basically what we did in Iraq. So now, none of that is the question. The real question is it a just war or is it not a just war? Or is it, as Obama said about Iraq, a dumb war? And that's the question we had with Afghanistan. Not in the beginning, not Afghanistan in 2001. We're talking about Afghanistan in 2009, which is a whole different war. And Arianna Huffington took the words right out of my mouth in a little debate that she had with John Podesta on This Week with Stephanopoulos. Let's go to clip number 4 here.
For me, the main problem is the same problem I had with his West Point speech, which is when he said that my job is to protect the American people from threats. Of course, everybody would agree with that. But he has not defined what the threats coming from Afghanistan are. And he did not define those threats in the West Point speech. He did not define them at any point. And that's really, at the moment, the main problem with his credibility, because where are the threats coming from? The Taliban, the 100 al-Qaeda left in Afghanistan. And remember, in 2002, he gave this defining speech that in many ways is responsible for his being president, which was against the war in Iraq, when he said, I'm not against all wars, I'm against a dumb war. And right now, Afghanistan is the gold standard of a dumb war, immoral and unnecessary.
Well, you know, I think that I find it ironic that the conservatives all embrace this speech. It seemed to me a repudiation of neoconservatism. They made the argument that because America was exceptional, the rules didn't apply to us. This was really rooted, I think, in post-World War II. This sounded like FDR to me, that he was saying that constraining our power, following the rules of the road, not torturing people, applying the Geneva Conventions, was the source of American exceptionalism, that we led the world towards that. With respect to Ariana's point about what the threat is, I think he was fairly clear that in the context of both the speeches that he gave, that we need to go after the people that attacked us. And I think that they've done that. They've done that. You could argue about whether this is the right strategy to do that. They're effectively using predators in Pakistan. They're doing more in Pakistan over the last 10 months.
You sound like George Bush. You know the people who attacked us. What? The people who attacked us are not in Afghanistan. But you know that. The idea that the people who attacked us are in Afghanistan.
Are in Pakistan.
But we're not going to Pakistan.
Well, I would beg to differ.
We're not sending 30,000 more troops to Pakistan.
I said you could argue about the tactics, but I would beg to differ that we're not going to Pakistan.
But
I mean,
the announcement he made about 30,000 troops.
There was a drone strike just this week which took out the number
right,
4 or 5 member of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan.
Is in Afghanistan.
Look, I think Ariana's right. We're sending the troops to Afghanistan. Is it a just war now, or is it a dumb war? Those are good questions. She goes a little further than I would when she says it's the gold standard of dumb wars. I definitely wouldn't go that far. But that's the conversation you should be having between Podesta and Ariana Huffington. That's a smart and reasonable conversation. And that's where the question of Afghanistan lies. Is it just or is it dumb? Young Turks.